Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Ash Crosby. We warmly welcome the family of Lance Sergeant Norman Joseph Rafferty, who are in attendance today, and the family members who are watching the live stream of the ceremony across Australia, and also in Los Angeles, in the United States. His story will be told shortly. We also warmly welcome Mr. Alex McGowan, President, Naval Association of Australia, ACT Section. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, all beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains that let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Please sit if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Sergeant Norman Joseph Rafferty. Norman Rafferty was born on the 18th of April 1919 in Springwood, a town in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales. The son of John and Lillian Rafferty, he attended St Stanislaus College in Bathurst before going off to work as a sales manager. Rafferty was also a member of the militia, parading part-time as a corporal in the 52nd Anti-Aircraft Company of the Royal Australian Engineers. With the start of the Second World War, Rafferty enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 2nd of July 1940. Given his previous experience in the militia, he was soon posted to the Royal Australian Engineers, first joining the 8th Division, training at Liverpool, and later being transferred to the 2nd 12th Field Company. The 2nd 12th Field Company supported the 8th Division, building and maintaining structures and machines. Their jobs included constructing lines of defence, temporary bridges, tunnels and trenches, observation posts, roads, railways, communication lines, buildings of all kinds, showers and bathing facilities, and other material and mechanical solutions to the problems associated with fighting in all theatres. Rafferty's experience and leadership potential soon led to promotion. In mid-September, he was appointed acting corporal. After further training and attending a gas course, in April 1941, he was appointed acting Lance Sergeant. Towards the end of that month, Rafferty suffered contusions to his left hand, caused by an accident in which a military lorry overturned in the Sydney suburb of Church Point. On the 28th of July 1941, Rafferty's promotion to corporal was made substantive, and the following day he embarked from Sydney, bound for Singapore. As war broke out in the Pacific, Japanese forces invaded Malaya. Indian and British units in northern Malaya initially provided stiff resistance, but were soon forced to withdraw in the face of the speed, ferocity and surprise of the Japanese attack. Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaya, was taken on the 11th of January 1942. 3 days later, parts of the Australian 8th Division went into action south of Kuala Lumpur. On the 31st of January, British and Australian forces withdrew across the causeway that separated Singapore from Malaya. Barely a week later, Japanese forces attacked across the Johor Strait. When Singapore was surrounded on the 15th of February, Rafferty and his comrades in the 8th Division were initially imprisoned at Seralang Barracks at Changi. But from May onwards, the Japanese began sending groups of prisoners of war for labouring work elsewhere in Asia and the Pacific. Rafferty became known as part of A-Force, a group of 3,000 men who were ultimately bound to work on the Burma-Thailand Railway. On the 14th of May 1942, the group was led from Changi Prison to Singapore Harbour for transport to Burma. A third of the men were placed aboard the Celebes Maru, with the remainder being loaded onto board the Toyohashi Maru. The journey aboard the vessels, known as hell ships, was the first taste of the gruelling life that awaited them. Those aboard the Celebes Maru were housed in overcrowded sheep pens. None of the prisoners arrived at their work sites healthier than when they left Singapore, and many finished their journey sick, exhausted, and malnourished. Heading up the west coast of Malaya, they arrived at Than Bayazat in Burma, the starting point for the construction of the Burma-Thailand Railway. The men were starved of food and medicine and forced to work impossibly long hours in remote and unhealthy locations. By the time the railway was completed in October 1943, approximately 13,000 prisoners of war, including more than 2,600 Australians and an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 civilians, had died. Ravaged by cholera, malaria, dysentery, tropical ulcers and starvation, A-Force was abandoned as a unit and its members were dispersed to various other camps. Norman Rafferty, however, did not live to see the completion of the railway. He was reported as dying of dysentery in Burma on the 14th of October 1942, a year before the railway's completion. He was 23 years old. The graves of those who died during the construction and maintenance of the railway were transferred from camp burial grounds. Today, Rafferty's remains lie buried at the Than Bayazat War Cemetery under the epitaph chosen by his grieving family, "Loved by all." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photo is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Sergeant Norman Joseph Rafferty, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.